big green drake right there. Beautiful. Boy, is this a typical late May fly day, you know, with the cooler weather, rain. You know, this is when the bugs come off. I know everybody likes to fish when it's sunny and nice, but that's not always when the bugs are going to come off the best, and that's not always when the fish are going to feed on them the best. But man, these overcast days in late May, a little bit of rain, it just brings on those green drakes. You know, these kind of pools are hubs for insects. You know, all the different currents are bringing a lot of insects down into this one place, and the fish are short stacked in here. But they're hard to get to because there's about 20 different currents coming, and about half dozen different species of bugs coming off right now. Even a green drake, for instance, it's coming off now. You know, there's 2 or 3 different types of green drakes. There's like a creamy green one, there's a like a smaller, darker winged one, and then there's like a large cream-bodied one. And you know, some of these trout are keying on different ones of those green drakes even. So it makes it a lot more challenging. You just gotta keep kind of going through your progressions and figuring out what they want and how they want it presented. I carry several variations of green drakes in my fly box to match the insects in color, size, and shape. It's amazing too how even if you have a dozen fish rising in front of you, certain fish may be keying on certain variations of the drakes. Wonder when a green drake is most likely to start emerging in your area? Check out the Identify app. Their hatch charts are extensive and put you in the ballpark so you know what to expect next time on the water and can be prepared. I'm going to start with a smaller size 10 parachute green drake. I've seen a few trout eat this particular one, including a nice brown on the far bank on the other side of a fallen log. When fishing big dry flies like green drakes, I use at least a 4.5x tippet such as this. You also need a quality floatant such as high and dry. I treat the fly with the spray floatant first and then the powder desiccant. This combination will make the big flies almost unsinkable and withstand repeated catches before any reapplication is necessary. So we're going to try for this. There's nice brown sitting over here, and he's going to be a challenge to get to because we're going across multiple seams, different lanes of faster water and slower water in between. It's just causing havoc with any drift you throw out there. My approach here is going to be basically stopping my rod tip high and coming fast on the forward cast, stopping it high abruptly to turn over that big fly and make sure that my fly and my leader hit the water at about the same time. If you go soft here with what I would call a normal dry fly cast, the problem is going to be your line is going to hit the water first, and with all these different currents, it's going to pull that line downstream, start pulling it before your fly even hits the water. So you're basically getting drag as soon as your fly lands, and you just have no chance. So you have to find a way to pile up the line, the leader and the tippet, so to give yourself enough slack out there to account for the multiple currents. But I'm going to show you how to do it, hopefully. I'm stopping my forward cast a little higher than normal rather than dropping the rod tip to the water surface. Doing this quickly and coming to an abrupt stop allows my line to turn over completely before dropping to the surface. This is basically a dump cast, which places a lot of slack on the water. Also, due to the tricky currents, I'm focusing on short, quality drifts. I'm targeting a single fish here, and there he is. Now I've pulled the fish down into the pool and cleared the log. It's important to do this quickly before the trout has an opportunity to use the surrounding structure. Nice fish. Ooh, doggy. Come on. That's how it's done, right there. Perfect. Beautiful brown, green drake inside the corner of its mouth. Damn, beauty. Little rock springs net. Beautiful. Beautiful. So now we've talked about the type of cast that I use, which is kind of the stop and stop high and dump a bunch of line, including your leader, and tip it on the water surface to create that slack. Let's talk about another method, which is to skate the fly. This is a really deadly tactic for using big flies in really tricky currents, because especially the big flies, it seems like they're always moving. When they're on the water, they're trying to dry their wings, they're fluttering on the surface a little bit, and the trout can really key in on that movement. So it doesn't hurt sometimes to impart some action into your dry fly. In this case, I switched over to a wolf style dry fly from the Parachute. Any type of wolf style or catskill style dry fly is going to be a lot easier to skate across the surface. If you use a Parachute, sometimes that will have a tendency to dig in because it sits so low on the water surface. And if you twitch a Parachute, it just has a tendency to sink, just to pull right under. So in this case, I'm going to tie on something with a heavy hackle on it, and the wolf style green drake. And when I cast out there, I'm going to just give it a twitch, get it into the fish's lane, hopefully a foot or two in front of where it's feeding. And hopefully in that last little bit, it'll come to a stop right above the fish, and that'll trigger a strike. Just like that, skated a little bit, and as soon as it stopped, whoa, come over there, okay. As soon as it stopped, fish took it. Nice little brownie. So the stream divides here, braids a little bit. We got a little back channel here where some fish are rising. Now, the question is, how in the heck do you get a fly down in there? We're looking at probably at least 65 feet, maybe 70 feet. He's down underneath some brush. He's just in the most impossible place. A lot of anglers would probably just pass up this fish, but I'm gonna try and catch him. So watch what I do here. I am kind of figuring out my cast in between these trees here. There's a little opening, and I'm gonna try to shoot it out there as far as possible and get that fly into the lane that the fish is feeding in. As soon as my fly hits the water, I have a bunch of slack line at my feet here, and I'm gonna feed out that line and allow that fly to drift all the way under these branches and back into that little nook where that trout is feeding. There we go. Look at that. That was the impossible cast. Well, oh, all that way and he got off. A fish just came up and turned on the fly. Some might think the trout missed the fly, but what really happened is the fish rejected it last minute. In this case, drag was the major factor, and I know a good drag-free drift over this fish will produce an eat. That fish was a good example. If a fish is refusing your fly, or if he comes up and misses it, I hear that a lot. Trout don't miss flies usually. They change their mind last second. But the biggest thing that I found is drag. You know, if you can present that fly, as long as you're reasonably close with the size, shape, and color of it, then, you know, you get a good presentation, and a majority of the time, if the trout aren't overly finicky, you can catch that fish. You know, in this case of this fish, he came up and refused it the first time because there was just a little bit of drag. So I just had to perfect my drag. Now, if I had a good drag through there and the fish was still refusing it, I would probably size down one fly and see if that made a difference before changing up my presentation completely. Another way to combat tricky currents is by focusing on short windows with your drifts. Don't worry about trying to cover the whole pool with one drift. As soon as your fly starts to drag, there's usually no coming back from that. In that case, just pick up your fly, try not to pop it when you're picking it up, pick it up gently, and cast again. When I figure out where a trout is feeding, where it's particularly liking that fly, what lane it's in, and I have that distance kind of figured out for my cast, I'm looking at casting 3 to 4 feet in front of that fish and getting it in that lane for a short period of time perfectly, rather than trying to cast 10 feet up and cover all the way down to them. And sometimes, even in the fast water, I'm not afraid to bop that fish right on the head, a foot in front of where it's feeding. And, you know, if they're really keen on an insect coming into their little window there, as soon as it enters that window, they're going to take it. They're not, you know, often not looking very far ahead for food. So, you know, focus on the short drifts and don't give it much time. Make it react. And, you know, sometimes that works. Come here. Where are you? Nice brown. Nice brown. Wow. There we go. There's the drake. So yeah, to get to that fish down there, kind of right at that tree on the left down there, I'm gonna have to drop it kind of in line with the tree on the right and feed slack down there so that it gets the fly first, and that way there's no drag on that fly as it goes right down, hopefully into his feeding lane. Well, I finally figured out how to get down in there. I got the right fly in the right position. Basically took kind of an upstream approach, casted, you know, a lot of slack line. As soon as I hit the water, just kind of let it feed out from my hands here and make that little half circle back in that little cove there, and just happened to get in the lane with the right fly, and fish took it. It's a long cast. Oh, we have so much line out there, It's a lot of line to pick up off the water, and you miss a few. There we go. Kind of playing around with the fly there, trying to figure out what lane I had to be in order to get the fly over that fish, and finally figured it out. Nice rainbow. I have my fly just hanging out into the current here. Nice fry. Well, it was a really good day on the stream today. It's always nice when you can hit a hatch. It's something you really can't plan. All you can do is go to the stream every day and hope the conditions align. And today they sure did. You know, we have some of this overcast, rainy days. We're at the prime time of May here for green drakes. And sure enough, they started coming off, you know, not in heavy numbers, but enough to get some fish feeding. And it gave us a lot of opportunity to work on a variety of casts and presentations. Well, if nothing else, I hope that you saw today that dry fly fishing can be just as dynamic as nymphing and any other type of fly fishing, especially when you're dealing with multiple currents, big flies, and you know, a bunch of fish that each have their way that they want it presented. You know, don't be afraid to experiment a little bit and try to figure out what's going to work. Because there's no right or wrong way sometimes. You know, some fish are going to want movement, some fish aren't. And, you know, if you try to fish the same way to every single trout that you encounter rising, it's not always going to be the method for success. There's always going to be fish that want to present just a little different way. And that's the beauty of fly fishing, is that it's a constant game of figuring out what the trout want and trying your best to deliver it to them. Thanks for watching.